Picture this. You open your closet, pull out your favorite sweater, and suddenly that faint musty odor hits you. Embarrassing, right? But here's the part that might shock you. Many seniors in the US are quietly spending over $300 a year on fabric sprays and fancy closet deodorizers, hoping to mask that smell, and most of them don't even work. Now, ask yourself, have those sprays truly solved the problem, or are you just covering it up? Imagine if you could keep your clothes fresh and clean without spending a dime on chemical sprays, just using simple things you already have at home. It's easier than you think, and today I'll show you exactly how. But before we dive in, tell me, have you ever felt frustrated trying to get that clean, fresh scent back into your clothes? Maybe you've tried sprays, sachets, or even those pricey closet fresheners that promise the world. Drop a comment below and let's share what's worked or not worked for you. And hey, if you're ready for smarter, budget-friendly advice that makes life after 60 easier, go ahead and tap that like button and subscribe right now. You won't want to miss these simple tricks that could change the way you care for your clothes forever. Myrtle is 74 years old, a retired school librarian living in a small, cozy town in Ohio. If you were to meet her, you'd notice right away the warmth in her smile, the kind that made her a favorite among generations of school children. Myrtle's days are filled with simple joys. She tends to her garden of roses and herbs. She bakes pies for community fundraisers, and she volunteers at the local library story hour. But there was something that quietly chipped away at her confidence. Something so small, yet so bothersome that it began to affect how she felt about herself. Every time Myrtle reached into her closet, she noticed it. That faint, unpleasant, musty smell clinging to her blouses, her church dresses, and even the cardigan she kept draped over her reading chair. It wasn't overpowering, but it was always there. A reminder that no matter how carefully she washed and folded her clothes, the freshness never seemed to last. The worst moments were at church potlucks, where Myrtle loved greeting neighbors with a hug or chatting over homemade casseroles. She started to wonder, could others smell it too? The thought of anyone noticing made her heart sink. She even found herself holding back from hugging her grandkids, afraid they'd wrinkle their noses or ask that innocent but stinging question, "Grandma, what's that smell?" Myrtle tried everything she could think of. She bought those closet air fresheners that promised to lock in freshness. She even invested in name-brand fabric sprays, spritzing her clothes before heading out, hoping no one would notice the stale odor hiding underneath. But the sprays left behind a heavy, artificial scent that made her sneeze. And no matter what, the mustiness always crept back. Can you relate to how Myrtle felt? That quiet worry that maybe your clothes aren't as fresh as you'd like? Share your experience in the comments. What's been your biggest struggle keeping clothes fresh? Today, Myrtle's story takes a different turn. She discovered simple, natural solutions, ones that cost next to nothing and actually worked. And what she learned might just change how you care for your clothes too. Stick with me, because Myrtle's first step is something you can try today without spending a single penny. Step 1. The Sunshine Secret. One bright morning, Myrtle stood in her kitchen, sipping a cup of chamomile tea and watching the sunlight stream through her window. That's when it struck her. Maybe she didn't need another spray, sachet, or gadget. Maybe what she really needed had been shining right outside her window all along. You see, Myrtle remembered something her mother used to do when she was a little girl growing up on a farm. Back then, fresh laundry wasn't about fancy detergents or bottled sprays. It was about good old-fashioned sunshine. So Myrtle decided to try something she hadn't done in years. She took one of her favorite cardigans, the one she always wore while reading on the porch, and gently shook it out. Then she draped it over the back of a chair by the sunniest window in her house. For about 30 minutes, she let that warm, natural light do its magic. And here's the fresh insight that so many forget. Sunshine isn't just about drying clothes or giving them that warm, crisp feel. The ultraviolet, UV, rays in natural sunlight actually help to kill odor-causing bacteria, those invisible culprits that make clothes smell stale. Sunlight weakens them, breaks them down, and helps lift the odor without a drop of chemical spray. After that half hour, Myrtle picked up her cardigan and gave it a gentle sniff. For the first time in ages, it smelled clean. Not covered up, not perfumed, just clean, like fresh air and warmth. That simple trick sparked a new habit. On sunny mornings, Myrtle would place shirts, sweaters, and even scarves over chairs near the window. When the weather was kind, she'd hang them on her porch railing or lay them across the patio table for a short sun bath. No extra effort, no money spent, just nature doing what it's always done best. Do you still dry your clothes outside or by a window? Maybe you have your own sunshine secret that's been passed down through the years. Share it in the comments. I'd love to hear how you've used natural light to freshen up your home. And stay with me, because the next step Myrtle tried was something so unexpected, it made her neighbors raise their eyebrows until they saw how well it worked. Step 2. The freezer trick. One evening, as Myrtle folded laundry in her small but tidy living room, she found herself frustrated. Despite letting her clothes soak in the sunshine earlier, a couple of her heavier sweaters, especially the wool ones she loved to wear on chilly mornings, still held onto a bit of that stubborn musty scent. She didn't want to douse them in sprays, and she wasn't about to spend money on another odor eliminator from the store. So Myrtle did something wonderfully unexpected. She thought back to something she'd once read in an old homemaker's magazine. When in doubt, freeze it out. That line popped into her mind, and she decided to give it a try. She grabbed a clean, sealable plastic bag and gently folded her favorite wool sweater inside. Then, with a mix of hope and curiosity, Myrtle placed the bag in her freezer, right between a bag of frozen peas and her container of homemade chicken soup. Why would she do that, you might wonder? Because the cold in your freezer doesn't just stop food from spoiling. Freezing temperatures can actually help kill the odor-causing bacteria that cling to fabric fibers. When those bacteria are exposed to extreme cold for several hours, they stop producing those unpleasant smells. Myrtle left the sweater in overnight, and the next morning, she pulled it out, let it come to room temperature, and gave it a sniff. To her surprise and delight, that stale scent was completely gone. No heavy perfume, no chemical cover-up, just the clean, neutral smell of fresh fabric. And the best part? It didn't cost Myrtle a single penny. She simply made use of something she already had, the freezer that keeps her garden veggies and pies fresh. This little trick became a regular part of her routine, especially for delicate items she didn't want to wash too often or for those cozy sweaters that seemed to trap odors. Have you ever tried using your freezer for anything other than food? Or maybe you've got a clever home trick that helps keep things fresh. Drop your ideas in the comments. I'd love to hear what's worked for you. But what Myrtle did next is what really shocked her friends. It was a simple touch that brought a bit of charm and a lot of freshness to her entire wardrobe. You won't believe how easy it was, and I'll share it in just a moment. Step 3. Homemade lavender pouches. After Myrtle's success with the freezer trick, she began thinking about how she could keep that clean, neutral freshness lasting longer in her closet. That's when a memory from her childhood bubbled up, one she hadn't thought about in years. Myrtle remembered visiting her grandmother's house as a little girl. The old farmhouse smelled of baking bread, wood polish, and, most memorably, lavender. Every time young Myrtle opened a drawer or lifted the lid of her grandmother's hope chest, that soft, calming scent would greet her. It was comforting, familiar, and oh so clean. Inspired, Myrtle decided to bring a little of that old-fashioned wisdom into her modern life. Out in her backyard garden, she had a small patch of lavender she'd planted years ago. The purple flowers had always been her favorite for adding color to the yard, but she'd never thought to use them this way. She snipped a few bunches, tied them with twine, and hung them upside down in the kitchen to dry. A week later, with the dried lavender ready, Myrtle gathered scraps of soft fabric, bits of old pillowcases and handkerchiefs she'd saved, and began to sew small pouches by hand. Nothing fancy, just simple little bags that could hold the lavender buds snugly inside. Once finished, Myrtle placed the fragrant pouches between the folds of her sweaters, tucked them into drawers, and even tied a few to the hangers in her closet. The effect was immediate. Every time she opened a drawer or reached for a cardigan, she was greeted by that gentle, natural lavender scent, just like at her grandmother's house. And what made Myrtle smile most was knowing this wasn't some store-bought solution packed with chemicals. It was a tradition, a simple act of care passed down through generations, and it worked beautifully. Not only did her clothes smell fresh, But that soft lavender aroma also brought a sense of calm and joy to her daily routine. Have you tried homemade fabric fresheners, or do you have a family trick that's been passed down? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. And just when Myrtle thought she'd done it all, she discovered a surprising household staple that made her closet feel cleaner and fresher than ever. You won't want to miss this next step. Step 4. Vinegar mist, no spray cans. Myrtle had always been the type of person who preferred simple, natural solutions over store-bought products. After rediscovering the power of sunlight, her freezer trick, and those nostalgic lavender pouches, she felt proud of how fresh her clothes were starting to smell. But there was still one issue that nagged at her. Every now and then, when the weather turned damp or the air in her house felt heavy, that faint, stale scent would sneak back into the corners of her closet. Determined to solve it once and for all, Myrtle looked around her kitchen for inspiration. That's when her eyes landed on the familiar bottle she kept under the sink. Plain, humble white vinegar. She'd used it for cleaning windows, wiping down counters, and even softening laundry. But could it help with closet odors too? Always one to try before she bought, Myrtle decided to give it a shot. She filled an old, reusable spray bottle with water and added just a teaspoon of vinegar. No fancy formulas, no expensive ingredients. Just two simple things she already had at home. Then, she opened her closet, took a deep breath, and gave the inside walls and shelves the lightest misting. The key here was gentle. Myrtle didn't soak her closet or spray it directly onto her clothes. Instead, she gave a fine, even mist along the wooden surfaces and let it air dry naturally. At first, she worried that vinegar's sharp scent might linger, but to her relief, it disappeared as it dried, taking that musty odor right along with it. Here's what made Myrtle love this step most. There were no chemicals, no artificial perfumes that made her sneeze, and no fear of staining or damaging her clothes. Just a clean, fresh-smelling space, thanks to something as simple as vinegar and water. And because she used a reusable bottle, she felt good knowing she was avoiding waste. No aerosol cans, no extra plastic to throw away. Over time, Myrtle made this part of her seasonal routine. Every few weeks, or whenever the air felt stuffy, she'd give her closet a quick mist. It became a small, satisfying habit that kept everything feeling fresh and cared for. Have you ever used vinegar for something other than cooking? Maybe you've got your own natural cleaning secret. Let us know in the comments. But Myrtle's next discovery? It didn't come from her kitchen or garden. It was a simple change in how she organized her closet, and it made a bigger difference than she ever expected. Stick around, because you might be surprised how easy it is to try this at home. Step 5. Shuffle and space your clothes. Myrtle's journey to fresher clothes didn't stop with sprays, sunshine, or sweet-smelling pouches. One afternoon, as she was tidying up her bedroom, she opened her closet to put away a newly washed blouse. That's when it hit her. The space was packed. Hangers crammed so tightly together that she had to wiggle and tug to slide one free. Blouses pressed against jackets, cardigans squished between dresses. It felt stuffy just looking at it. And then Myrtle had a realization. No matter how clean or fresh each item was when it went in, the way they were stored might be working against her. Clothes that are packed too tightly don't just wrinkle and lose their shape. They trap moisture. They stop air from circulating. And where there's trapped moisture and stale air, odors have a way of settling in and lingering. Determined to change that, Myrtle set aside a morning to reorganize. She started by removing everything from the closet and giving herself a clean slate. As she placed each item back, she made a simple rule. Every hanger should have at least a finger's width of space on either side. That small gap, just enough for air to move freely, made a world of difference. At first, Myrtle worried she wouldn't have room for everything. But as she worked, she realized there were pieces she no longer wore, items that could be donated or packed away for another season. The result wasn't just a fresher closet. It was a lighter, more organized space that made getting dressed in the morning feel easier and more joyful. And the best part? Within days, Myrtle noticed the difference. When she opened her closet, it no longer had that slightly stale, closed-in smell. Her clothes felt crisper, as if they'd had a chance to breathe. And all it took was a little space and a new way of thinking about how she stored her favorite pieces. Does your closet feel cramped? Could this simple change help freshen things up for you too? Sometimes the solution isn't what you add, it's what you remove and how you let your clothes breathe. What Myrtle discovered next took that idea even further. It was an age-old, kitchen-friendly solution that quietly absorbed odors day and night without her lifting a finger. Stay tuned, because this trick is as easy as it gets. Step 6. The power of plain baking soda. After Myrtle had spaced out her hangers and given her clothes room to breathe, she felt proud of the fresh, airy closet she had created. But as any Ohio native knows, the weather doesn't always cooperate. Some days were warm and dry, while others brought humidity that seeped into every corner of the house. On those muggy mornings, Myrtle would open her closet and worry. What if all her hard work was undone by the sticky summer air? That's when Myrtle turned to one of the simplest, most overlooked tools in her home: plain baking soda. No fancy packaging, no gimmicks. Just the same little orange box she kept by the stove for baking cookies or freshening up the refrigerator. She took an empty glass jar, one that had once held homemade jam, and filled it halfway with baking soda. Then she placed it quietly on the top shelf of her closet, tucked in a corner, out of sight, but always working. Unlike sprays or pouches that add a scent, baking soda does something even better. It absorbs odors at the source. Here's the beauty of it. Baking soda doesn't cover up smells. It doesn't add a fragrance or fill the closet with perfume. Instead, it soaks up unwanted moisture and neutralizes odor-causing particles in the air. Day and night, without any effort, it quietly helps keep the space dry and fresh. Myrtle loved that it worked silently, asking nothing of her except a quick refill every few months. And it was inexpensive. A box of baking soda cost less than the price of a cup of coffee, and yet it offered more value than any fabric spray she'd ever bought. Plus, there was peace of mind in knowing she wasn't introducing any unnecessary chemicals into her home, just using a natural solution that had been trusted for generations. Myrtle felt a small sense of victory every time she opened her closet and breathed in the clean, neutral air. No stale hints of must or mildew. No artificial scent trying to cover things up. Just the satisfaction of a closet that stayed truly fresh, even on damp or humid days. But the last step Myrtle discovered is what truly kept her clothes fresh and beautiful through the stickiest, most humid Ohio summers. It's a simple seasonal habit that not only protects your clothes, but can bring a surprising sense of joy and renewal. Stay with me, because you'll want to try this in your own home. Step 7. Seasonal Closet Refresh Ritual. Twice a year, usually at the start of spring and again when autumn settles in, Myrtle sets aside a quiet hour for what she fondly calls her closet refresh ritual. It's not just about cleaning. It's become a small but meaningful tradition, a way to honor the clothes she's collected over the years and the memories they hold. On those mornings, Myrtle opens the closet doors wide, letting fresh air and soft light pour in. With a gentle cloth dipped in mild soapy water, she carefully wipes down the closet walls, the shelf edges, and even the floor beneath her shoes. It's not rushed or treated like a chore. Instead, she moves slowly, thoughtfully, giving each corner of the space attention. As she works, Myrtle takes the opportunity to handle every piece of clothing. There's the blue dress she wore to her granddaughter's graduation, the cozy sweater she wrapped herself in on cool evenings on the porch, the blouse that made her feel confident at a church luncheon. Each item tells a story, and in those quiet moments, she reflects on the chapters of life those clothes represent. Rotating her wardrobe also became part of the ritual. Myrtle gently folds away items that are out of season, making space for what she'll wear in the coming months. By doing this, she not only protects her clothing from unnecessary wear, but also keeps the closet feeling light and organized. It's a way of staying connected to the rhythm of the year, embracing change, preparing for what's next. What Myrtle came to love most about this simple habit wasn't just the clean closet or the fresh scent that lingered after she finished. It was the sense of renewal it brought. There was something deeply satisfying about starting fresh, twice a year, and knowing that with just a little care, her clothes would last longer, look better, and feel ready for new memories. This seasonal refresh became Myrtle's gift to herself, an hour of peace, reflection, and purposeful action. And best of all, it required no special tools or expensive products. Just time, care, and the willingness to pause and appreciate the little things. If you've never tried a closet refresh, consider setting aside an hour this season. You might be surprised at how much joy it brings, not just to your wardrobe, but to your heart. Myrtle's journey from frustration to confidence didn't require a shopping spree, a closet overhaul, or any pricey miracle products. It came from small, thoughtful steps, simple habits she could manage on her own, with items she already had at home. Today, when Myrtle opens her closet doors, she's met with a gentle, clean freshness that makes her smile. There's no trace of the musty odors that once made her second-guess what to wear or shy away from a warm hug. Those moments that used to fill her with quiet worry, welcoming friends over for coffee, sitting shoulder to shoulder at church gatherings, or wrapping her arms around her grandkids, are now sources of pure joy. Myrtle no longer wonders if others will notice something off about her clothes. She knows they're clean, cared for, and a reflection of the love and attention she puts into every part of her home. What's truly beautiful about Myrtle's transformation is how ordinary the steps were. No harsh chemicals, no complicated routines, no expensive sprays promising freshness but delivering disappointment. Just sunlight, fresh air, baking soda, a spritz of vinegar, the calming scent of lavender, a little space between hangers, and a thoughtful seasonal refresh. You don't need pricey sprays or fancy products. Just simple steps, love, and a little old-fashioned wisdom. And in following these small practices, Myrtle not only saved money, she found something deeper, a sense of pride in doing things the natural, gentle way. A feeling of connection to her past, her home, and the people she loves. Now, the simple act of choosing an outfit in the morning feels different for Myrtle. It's not just about what to wear. It's about stepping out into the day with confidence, knowing that everything she puts on carries the care she's shown it. If Myrtle's story resonates with you, if you've ever wished for a fresher, cleaner closet without all the gimmicks, why not give these steps a try? If this helped, tap like, hit subscribe, and share this with a friend who deserves fresh, clean clothes too. Let's spread the wisdom and keep our homes feeling as welcoming and comforting as they should.